Humanity spent 95% of its history living in filth, darkness, and fear. And then, boom. We live in a world where flying to the other side of the planet is just another trip, and artificial intelligence can create videos that are almost impossible to tell from reality. Everyone has a personal supercomputer in their pocket, without which we literally can't imagine a single day. For us, this is completely normal, but how did we get to this level of technology from a world of knights who couldn't even dream of such things? We tend to think progress is natural, but in reality, humanity spent most of its history in darkness, dirt, and complete isolation. Today, we'll quickly travel from warriors who didn't bathe for months to a world where you can order pizza via satellite in space. How did we manage to change everything so fast? And who were the crazy people who invented all the things we use now?
Let's go!
The Middle Ages are often romanticized, but let's be honest, it was the golden age of terrible hygiene. If you were a knight in the 14th century, your main enemy wasn't a dragon, it was dysentery. Progress basically hit the pause button for centuries. Why? Because the church said everything important had already been invented. And if you were a little too smart or started asking the wrong questions while trying to explain the world with science, things could get complicated. The Inquisition believed it had a very simple way to fix that curiosity, usually involving a big fire in the town square. So your main enemy wasn't a dragon, it was dysentery. Or a neighbor who got a little too interested in your experiments. But in the 1440s, one guy named Johannes Gutenberg did something that shook the world harder than a nuclear bomb. He invented the printing press. Before that, books were copied by hand for years, and they cost as much as an entire house. Now, suddenly, knowledge became accessible. This was the first real step from darkness into light. People started reading, thinking, and, most dangerously of all, questioning. Let's jump to the 18th century. People were still riding horses, which, by the way, were basically the main cause of an environmental crisis. Yes, there could be thousands of tons of manure on the streets of London. That was a real issue. But no, the entire city wasn't buried under 1-meter mountains of it. Relax. Then, steam changed everything. In 1776, it's basically the birthday of modern industry, James Watt improved the steam engine. Suddenly, instead of 100 horses, you could use one iron boiler powered by coal. This was the first industrial revolution. Trains appeared. For the first time in history, humans began moving faster than a galloping horse. It was a shock. Doctors at the time seriously warned that at speeds of 50 kilometers per hour, passengers' heads might explode, or they would lose their minds. Spoiler, the heads didn't explode, but the world changed forever. Think about the knights for a moment. If they wanted to send a message to a neighboring kingdom, they had to send a rider, who might get eaten by wolves along the way. But in 1876, Alexander Graham Bell spoke into a receiver and said,
"Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you."
That was the first telephone call, and suddenly, distance stopped being a wall. There was just one problem. Those early phones were incredibly weak because mass electricity simply didn't exist yet. They worked on pure physics, the vibrations of your voice, which meant you couldn't call another city. The signal would fade after just a few walls. But the real magic started later. Not many people know this, but the first mobile phones in the 1970s weighed as much as a brick, and the battery lasted about 20 minutes. And then Steve Jobs walked onto a stage in 2007 and introduced the iPhone. He didn't invent the phone, he didn't invent the music player. He simply put the whole world, music, maps, email, into one glass rectangle. Now there's more computing power in your pocket than NASA had when they sent humans to the moon. The end of the 19th century. Imagine a world where the sun sets, and that's it. Work is over. You light a smelly kerosene lamp and go to bed. And then they show up. Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. This was the real war of currents. Edison pushed direct current. Tesla backed alternating current. Edison even staged public electrocutions of animals to prove that Tesla's current was dangerous. But progress doesn't stop. In 1879, the incandescent light bulb defeated the darkness. Suddenly, night became working time. Cities came alive. So in 1879, Edison gave us light. But don't think that the next morning every city was glowing like Las Vegas. When the first steel skyscraper was built in Chicago in 1885, electricity inside it was still a luxury for the chosen few. Most offices in these brand new towers were still lit by old gas lamps. Just a few years later, electricity began replacing gas lamps. While some people were experimenting with electricity, Carl Benz patented the first automobile in 1886. It was a three-wheeled carriage that rattled so loudly horses on the streets would panic. People laughed. Why would I need this smelly machine if I already have a loyal horse? But Benz knew something simple. Horses get tired. Iron doesn't. And then, in 1903, the Wright brothers lifted the first airplane into the air for just 12 seconds. 12 seconds that turned us from creatures stuck to the ground into something closer to birds. From that first flight to landing on the moon would take only 66 years. Just think about it. One person in a single lifetime could witness the first fragile plane barely leaving the ground and then watch a rocket launch into space. The first computers weren't about playing Minecraft. They were monsters, weighing 30 tons and taking up entire rooms. In 1945, ENIAC consumed as much electricity in an hour as an entire multi-story building. Then came Alan Turing, a genius who, during World War II, built a machine to crack German codes. He is basically the father of modern software. He came up with the idea that a machine could not just calculate, it could think using algorithms. Then the explosion happened. The transistor was invented. This allowed computers to shrink from the size of a whale to the size of a pizza box. Bill Gates and Microsoft made it so that a computer could stand in every home. In 1989, Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web, the internet for everyone. Suddenly, we weren't just biological beings anymore. We became part of a global network. Today, AI makes weird videos with cats, and humanoid robots are slowly becoming real. Humanity rushed from the steam engine to the digital age in just about 250 years. For history, that's just a moment. But for us, it's a massive gap between the dirt of the past and the magic of the present. We now have things our ancestors couldn't even dream about. But did all of this actually make us happier? And honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg. That's all for today. Like and subscribe if you want more content like this. See you next time.